Fossil fuels have allowed civilization to make tremendous leaps forward. They power industry and business as well as our vehicles and homes. They ignite and advance our ambitions. Those advances, though, come at a cost. Climate scientists agree that the burning of fossil fuels to drive our cars and refrigerate our food is warming the planet. Their combustion produces greenhouse gases that allow sunlight in, but trap heat from that sunlight over long periods, preventing it from leaving the atmosphere. This has a profound effect on climate, as the accumulated heat is dissipated through the climate system. Now, greenhouse gases have been in the Earth's atmosphere for billions of years, but never at the levels of today, which have resulted from human activities. Over time, the world is now experiencing unprecedented levels of greenhouse gases and climate change. This led world governments to adopt the Paris Agreement, a legally binding international treaty involving nearly 200 countries to tackle global warming and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Paris Agreement aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably to 1.5 degrees, through measures to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases. Trinidad and Tobago is a signatory to this landmark pact. Now, there are many moving parts to the Paris Agreement, all of which are meant to work in concert to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat climate change. So any strategy to forestall the worst effects of climate change caused by greenhouse gases must begin with an assessment of how much greenhouse gas is being released into the atmosphere and where these gases are coming from. One of the key tools for achieving these goals is known as the Greenhouse Gas Inventory, or GHG inventory. So how does it work? Well, the GHG inventory is developed each year by signatory countries to track trends in greenhouse gas emissions from all man-made sources: cars, factories, power plants. This inventory is submitted to the United Nations in accordance with the Framework Convention on Climate Change. The GHG inventory uses international standardized methodologies to quantify national emissions output according to specific sectors. Trinidad and Tobago, as a signatory to the Paris Agreement, has been examining our output of greenhouse gases. Between 2017 and 2021, the Ministry of Planning and Development spearheaded an initiative to determine just how much climate warming gas TNT had emitted between 2008 and 2018. The main emitters from identified sectors of the economy were surveyed to find out how much greenhouse gas each was producing. The resulting GHG inventory for the years 2008 to 2018 shows that industry produces 48% of TNT's total carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. The energy sector produces 42%. Waste management produces 5% of CO2 emissions. The AFOLU sector represents the only net sink for TNT, meaning it absorbs more carbon dioxide than it produces. Our biggest emitter of climate-changing greenhouse gas is the energy sector and downstream petrochemical industry. While these processes are important to the national economy, we must find ways of reducing emissions from these sectors in alignment with global efforts to achieve objectives of the Paris Agreement. Trinidad and Tobago also use the GHG inventory to track commitments under the Paris Agreement relative to a business-as-usual scenario. Business as usual is really a baseline figure, a way TNT represents our commitment under the Paris Agreement, known as the Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC, a policy tool in the fight to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The business as usual, or BAU baseline, expresses how much greenhouse gas we expect to emit in the future without any steps to reduce it. With the business as usual baseline, we can compare future emissions and assess measures to reduce them. What we know, though, is that from 2006 to 2018, TNT's total greenhouse gas emissions went up. Overall, the three main emitting sectors, industry, power generation and transportation, have been targeted with reducing their total emissions by 15% by the year 2030 under the NDC. This is equivalent to reducing our output of carbon dioxide equivalent gases by 103 million tons by 2030. The costs of inaction are increasingly clear, from higher temperatures and water shortages to more intense storms. That's why the greenhouse gas numbers and the GHG inventory are so important. Trinidad and Tobago is committed to doing its part to reduce global emissions. We can't go on with business as usual when it comes to warming the planet and our island home.